Okay guys, I'm going to go ahead and do the review for your Chapter 9 test. I'm going to show my work for some of the questions, not all of them, and I'm also going to be crossing out questions that you don't have to know. I just give them to you guys for extra practice. So looking at Chapter 9, Lesson 7, I'm going to go from the last unit that we covered to the first unit, because you guys should have your quiz and you should be studying that as well. And I'm also going to give you the formulas that you need to know. Formulas that are going to be given to you. I am giving you the formula for the area of a triangle, formula for laws of sine and laws of cosine. I'm just going to give you all three of those just so you have them, just so it could be a little easier. So first thing on this page, don't worry about number 13 and 1 through 3. You're not going to have those questions on the test. So let's go ahead and solve. 4th, 5, 7, 9, and 11. Something that you need to know that maybe I didn't clarify because some students were asking, why can't I just use SOHCAHTOA for 7, 9, and 11? As a reminder, SOHCAHTOA can only be used for right triangles, and if you're looking at 7, 9, and 11, those are not right triangles. So for that reason, you have to use either law of sine or law of cosine. Alright, I'm going to do actually 4 and 5 first. So this is asking find the area of the triangle, round your answer to the nearest tenth. You will be given formula for area of a triangle, so I'm not asking you to memorize this, but you do have to know how to use it. So the formula for A, I'm just going to write it down. I have 1/2 BC sine angle A. You will be given the formulas. And to solve this, here's side A, here's B, and here's C. So what I'm going to do, again, just wondering where I'm getting these A, B, C from, the lowercase letters, they're opposite of the angle. So if I'm looking at this one, A is opposite of angle A, B is opposite of angle B, and C is opposite of angle C. So I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. I'm going to have B first, so I'm going to have 12 times 9 sine 25 divided by 2. Then all you have to do for this one is plug it in. Okay, but Ms. Chung, how do I show my work on the test? Because you have to show work. What I would do to show work is show me what you're plugging in, and then all you have to do is plug it into your calculator, and your answer for this one would be, they're asking for area equals 22.8 meters squared. So that one should be pretty easy. Again, you're just plugging it into the calculator. Looking at number 5, same operation. I'm just going to use a different type, same format for what I'm plugging in, except I'm changing the sides and the angle that I'm using. So this one's going to be 1/2 AB sine C. So again, labeling, I have A, I have B, and I have C. So now I can go ahead and just plug in what I have. A is 37 times B is 11, sine angle C, which is 135, and dividing everything by 2 again, showed my work. I'm just going to go ahead and plug it into the calculator, and your answer for area is going to be 143.9 feet squared, rounding to the nearest tenth. Please don't forget your units. All right, 7, 9, and 11, you're going to have one question like this on your test. First, looking at it, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. Here's A, B, C, and now I need to determine, am I using law of sine or law of cosine? So for this one, because they're not giving me, so let me just go ahead and highlight it. I have here's side B, here's A, and then here is C. Because they're not giving me a matching angle with a side, however, looking at it, I can find angle B, because that should be the easiest angle. If they're giving me 2 of my angles, I just have to find the missing one. So in order for me to find angle B, what I'm going to do is add 40 plus 35. I'm going to get 75, and then I'm just subtracting that from 180 because we should know a triangle is 180. So 180 minus 75 is going to give me 105, and that's for my angle. So for this one, don't really need to use law of cosine because I already found my angle and now I have a matching side. So angle B is 105, and I wrote it right there. Don't forget your angle symbol. And now I just have to find C and A. So for that, I'm going to use law of sine. So first thing I'm going to take is I'm going to take my matching side and angle. So I'm going to do sine 105 over 10. Again, I said I'm going to go ahead and find A and C. I'm going to go ahead and do A first. Equals sine 35 over A. So I'm going ahead and trying to find my side. So solving it, what you need to do is cross multiply. Think of it as proportions. Cross multiply, so what I'm plugging into the calculator is 10 sine 35 divided by sine 105. If you plugged it in correctly, side A is going to be 5.9 as your answer. Let me fix that so it doesn't look so much like a Q. And A is going to be 5.9, so I'm going to go ahead and write that on here. All right, now I'm kind of doing the same thing for side C. So what I'm doing for this one is I'm still using sine 105 over 10. But again, I'm solving for C, so I'm going to set it equal to sine 40, because that's my angle, over C. And again, same operation. Cross multiply these. So what I'm plugging into the calculator, I'm going to get 10 sine 40 over sine 105. And again, if you plugged it into the calculator correctly, C equals 6.7, and that's rounded. Okay, this is for number 7. I'm going to go ahead and do number 11. So looking at this one, as you can see, there's no angles. So I have to go ahead and solve for an angle. So I'm going to use law of cosine. Just a reminder, you guys will be given the formulas for law of cosine, so it's not something that you will have to memorize. However, let's go ahead and plug it in. I'm going to go ahead and just find side A first. So looking at the formula, I'm going to be using is A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine A. And again, you will be given this. So looking at what they're giving me, just labeling my sides, here's A, B, C, I'm going to go ahead and plug in. I don't know, well, I do know side A, so I'm plugging in 7 squared. I'm going to do it in blue. 7 squared equals 9 squared plus 4 squared minus 2 times 9 times 4 cosine A, and that's what I'm trying to solve for. I'm trying to solve for my angle. So I'm going to take my calculator. Again, you guys will have calculators on here, and if you don't have one, I do have some extra. I'm plugging in 49 equals, what I'm solving for this, I'm going to solve it in little steps. So I'm going to highlight what I'm solving on my calculator, and keep in mind I did not take that subtraction sign. I'm going to go ahead and write that separately. So I have 9 squared plus 4 squared, again plugging it into my calculator, 97 minus, now again solving 2 times 9 times 4, I'm going to get 72 cosine A. And again, I'm trying to solve for my angle. So now going ahead and solving the next step, I'm going to do minus 97 from both sides. So this one is quite a process. Oops, let me not cross that out. So 49 minus 97, I'm going to get a negative 48 equals negative 72 times cosine A. And to get rid of that 72, because it's multiplication, I'm going to go ahead and divide by 72. And again, if I'm solving for my angle, I have to use the inverse. So what I'm plugging into my calculator is cosine -1. So you have to do second cosine, open parentheses, negative 48 over negative 72. If you plugged it in and solved it correctly, your answer for this one should have been, let me grab a green. We're solving for angle A. Angle A equals 48.2 degrees, and that's rounded. So I'm going to go ahead and write it here, 0.2 degrees. Now, because I do have a matching pair, I do have a matching side, one of my matching sides, A, I'm not going to use law of cosine. I'm just going to go ahead and use law of sine. So I'm going to go ahead and solve for C. So what I'm plugging in is I'm plugging in sine 48.2 over 7, because that's what I have, equals, again, I said I'm solving for C, so I'm going to plug it in as sine C over 4. Same thing as before. I'm going to go ahead and multiply 4 to both sides. And because I'm solving for an angle, I have to plug in the inverse. Open parentheses, 4 times sine, the parentheses is gonna open on your calculator, 48.2, close the parentheses, divided by 7. And with that, you're gonna get angle C equals 25.2 degrees. So now if I'm solving for angle B, all I have to do is 48.2 plus 25.2, that's going to equal 73.4, and then do 180 minus 73.4. Your answer for this is going to be angle B equals 106.6 degrees. 106.6 degrees, and you're done with this one. All right, looking at the last one, number 9. So with number 9, I don't have a matching side and angle. So just so you can see it, I'm going to go ahead and label. I have B here, A here, C here. And I can't find one angle because I don't know what the other two are. They're only giving me one. So for this one, I do have to use law of cosine first. So I'm going to go ahead and, like I've been doing, I'm going to solve for a missing side. So I'm solving for side B. So the formula I'm using for this, again, you're going to be given the formulas. B squared equals A squared plus C squared. This is law of cosine. And again, you will be given this, so you don't have to memorize it. All right, now plugging in what I have, I'm trying to solve for side B, so I'm going to leave it as B squared equals 11 squared plus 8 squared minus 2. I'm sorry, that is not a 2. 2 times 11 times 8 cosine angle B, which is 131. So going ahead and solving what I can, I'm going to highlight what I'm going to solve first. So I know I can solve right here. I know I can solve here, and then just go ahead and bring everything else down. All right, this is going to be 185 minus 2 times 11 times 8, 176, cosine 131, and I'm still solving for B squared. Now to get rid of square, I'm going to go ahead and square root it, and yes, you can plug all of this into a square root. So on your calculator, you're going to push second squared, 185 minus 176, cosine 131, and if you get your answer and you click enter, B should equal 17.3, and that's rounded to the nearest tenth. So now that we have a matching angle and a side, I don't have to use law of cosine. I'm going to go ahead and use, oops, this shouldn't be an angle. I'm going to go ahead and use law of sine to find the rest of my angles. I'm going to go ahead and find the small angle first. I'm going to go ahead and find angle C. So using law of sine, I'm going to have sine 131 over 17.3 equals, again, I'm solving for the smaller angle first, C, sine C over side 8. Okay, C and angle C are going to go together. So solving this like we've done before, multiply both sides by 8 to get rid of my 8. And then because I'm solving for an angle, I have to do the inverse. Open parentheses 8 sine 131, close parentheses, divided by 17.3. If you got the correct answer by plugging that into your calculator, angle C is going to equal 20.4 degrees. That is my degrees. And now to solve for the last one, angle A. Angle A, all you have to do is plug in the 20.4 plus 131. 20.4 plus 131 equals 151.4. And then take that and subtract by 180. Let me go ahead and do that. Minus 180. If you subtract it correctly, so I did 180 minus 151.4. Angle A is going to equal 28, oops, not 88, 28.6 degrees, and those should be your answers. Again, you will get one of these types of questions on your test. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe this one could be a multiple choice one, but again, you are going to be given the formulas for that. All right, for 9.6, these are pretty easy. 4, 5, and 6, I believe I did go over those in class, but just in case, if you need help with these, you're just solving for the angle. So for these, when you're solving for the angle, you just have to make sure you plug the inverse into your calculator. So to solve for 4, 5, and 6, all you're doing plugging into your calculator is the inverse of sine, open parentheses, 0.64. If you plug that in correctly, your answer for this should be 39.8 degrees, and that's it. So same thing for this one, for number 5. You're just plugging in the inverse of cosine. Again, how you're pushing that is second cosine, 0.12. And if you did that correctly, your answer is 83.1 degrees. Again, these are all angles. And same thing for here. Second tan, which is going to give you the inverse, 2.18. And again, if you plugged it in correctly, your answer should have been 65.4 degrees. Those should be given. Those should be super, super easy for you to solve. All right. Now, for 9, 7, we did not have right triangles. I do have right triangles for these. So what you're solving for is angle P, side PR, and side RQ. So I'm just going to go ahead and represent them as Y and X, and then I have my angle in blue. So looking at this, your angle should be the easiest for a right triangle because those two acute angles should equal 90. So for angle P, what I'm going to do is 90 minus 37, and you're going to get your answer as 53 degrees. So right here is 53 degrees, and that should be super easy. Now, solving for my sides. What I'm using for solving for my sides is that rule SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA. And looking at it, I personally always like to use the angle they're giving me. So I am solving X and Y according to this angle that they gave me, 37. So because they're giving me 37 and they're giving me 22, I have to figure out what Y is according to my angle. So for Y, that is considered my opposite angle, and I have my hypotenuse, which is the 22. So I'm going to look at the top. Which one is opposite and hypotenuse? It's going to be sine. So looking at sine, I'm plugging in my calculator. Sine 37 equals, well, this is how I'm setting it up. Sine 37 equals opposite, which is Y, over the hypotenuse, which is 22, and then going ahead and solving this. Get rid of the 22, so I'm multiplying both sides by 22. And again, if you have your calculator and you're plugging it in, side Y is going to equal 13.2. So again, like I said, I personally like to use what they're giving me. So what they're giving me again, I'm going to use my angle for my side X. This is my hypotenuse, and I'm solving for X. So now I have hypotenuse on my adjacent side, so I'm going to go ahead and use cosine. So now I have cosine 37 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Same thing as before, get rid of that 22, multiply both sides by 22, and if you solved it correctly, X equals 17.6. 6. So these are a lot more straightforward than 9, 7. All right, going over here to number 9, same thing as before. I need to solve for this angle. And because it's a right triangle, I know my two acute angles are going to equal 90. So angle A, what I'm solving is 90 minus 51. That's going to give me 39 degrees. So that's my answer for my angle. And then I'm going to go ahead and solve for my hypotenuse, which is x, and my y for CB. So looking at this one, I'm going to go ahead and solve for AB first. So again, writing SOHCAHTOA because super important that we know it. I'm going to go ahead and solve for x first. So again, I like to use the angle they're giving me and the side they're giving me. So right now I have opposite 51 and I'm solving for my hypotenuse. So looking at it, which one has opposite and hypotenuse? I'm going to go ahead and use So sine my angle, which is 51, equals the opposite side, which is 14 over x. And then plugging this one into the calculator, it's a little different. I'm not multiplying both sides by 14. What I'm plugging in is 14 over sine 51. And if you plug that correctly into your calculator, this side is going to equal 18. All right, now looking at my y, what I have is angle 51, my opposite side, and I'm solving for my adjacent side. So for that one, I'm going to be using TOA, tan. So plugging in, I'm going to have tan 51 equals opposite, which is 14, over my adjacent side. So same thing as before, I'm going to go ahead and plug it into my calculator as 14 over tan 51. And if you plug that in correctly and got the answer, y is going to equal 11.3, and you're done. 11.3, and this one's going to be 18.0. All right, you will get these types of questions on your test, one from 4 through 6 and one either 7 and 9. All right, 9.5. There are some questions on here that you don't need to know, so you can just go ahead and cross them out. So 1 and 2 and number 10, I'm not going to give you guys questions like that. Looking at this page, 3, 4, 5, and 6, you will have a question like that on your test. All it's asking is to write the expression in terms of sine or cosine. So if they're already giving you sine, I already did go over this in class, you're changing it to cosine because I'm changing it in terms of sine or cosine. If they're giving me sine, I have to write it in terms of cosine. And all you're doing is subtracting 90 minus 22. So your answer is going to be cosine 68 degrees. Same thing for the next one. If they're giving you in terms of cosine, I need to change it to sine. Same thing as before. 90 minus 56, sine 34 degrees is going to be your answer. Again, we're finding an angle. I'm looking at this one. If they're giving me in terms of cosine, I need to change it to in terms of sine. 90 minus 15, and this is going to be sine 75 degrees. And the last one, sine, I'm changing it to cosine. Same thing as before, 90 minus 37. And for this one, you're going to get cosine 53 degrees. Remember, it's 90 degrees, not 180. All right, find the value for each variable using sine and cosine. Round your answer to the nearest tenth. So looking at this, using terms of sine and cosine, I'm just going to go ahead and write it because I'm a visual, I need to see it. SOHCAHTOA. So I'm not going to be using TOA. I'm not going to be using tan because they told me in terms of sine or cosine. So I'm going to go ahead and solve it. So solving for A, I'm solving for A. What do I have? I have my angle 36. I have my hypotenuse. A is considered my opposite. So for this one, I'm using sine. So plugging it in as sine 36 equals opposite over hypotenuse. That should actually be an A. It looks more like a 9, so let me change that. A over 25. And what I'm doing to both sides is multiplying both sides by 25. So side A is going to equal 14.7. Going ahead and solving in terms of side B. So again, angle 36, I have my hypotenuse, and I'm solving for my adjacent side. I'm going to go ahead and use cosine. So this one I'm solving it using cosine 36 equals adjacent. So I have B over 25. And same thing as before, multiply both sides by 25. And if you solved correctly, B is going to equal 20.2. All right, looking at number 9, solving in terms of sine and cosine. I'm going to go ahead and solve for R first. So in terms of angle 20, I have 117, so I'm just going to go ahead and write my SOHCAHTOA. So, CAHTOA. And looking at it, solving for angle R, I have my hypotenuse and my adjacent side. So this one I'm going to do cosine. So I have cosine 20 equals 117 over A. And plugging this one into the calculator, I'm going to have 117 divided by cosine 20. So if you have that and you plugged it in correctly, your not A, oh my goodness, it's not A, it's R. So let me go ahead and fix that over R. R is going to equal 124.5. Okay, they want me to solve in terms of sine and cosine. So what I'm going to do for this one is, because I'm solving for S, I did solve for my hypotenuse, which was 124.5. But if you feel comfortable solving for tan, that's fine. I'm using tan to solve, but I'm just going to go ahead and use sine. So for this one, I have sine angle 20 equals, sine is opposite, S over my hypotenuse, 124.5, because that's what they gave me. So for this one, solving for S, multiply both sides by 124.5. Oof, I'm squeezing it in there. 124.5. If you plug that into the calculator, S is going to equal 42.6. All right, so you will get a question like 3 through 6 on your test, and you'll get a question like 7 and 9 on your test. All right, 9.4. I did tell you guys to cross out the first question. I will not be giving you one like that. Don't worry about it. But you will get one like 3, 4, and 5. So the previous questions we did for 5 and for 9.5, 7, and 9, that was finding for all the sides. This one's just solving for one side. So for this one, I'm just going to write SOHCAHTOA at the top. This one you only have to find one missing side. And looking at it, according to number 3, what are they giving me? Using my angle. So for this one, looking at my angle, I have my opposite side and my adjacent side. So opposite and adjacent, I'm going to use tan. So plugging in, I have tan 65 equals 29 over x. And solving this, getting rid of my x on both sides, because I can't multiply by 29 on both sides. And then I have x tan 65 equals 29. With practice, you guys should already know, all you're doing is dividing by tan 65 on both sides. So just kind of showing you the work. Oops, I forgot my tan over here. Just showing you the work on why we're dividing it. All right, so all you're plugging into the calculator is 29 divided by tan 65. And if you plug that in correctly, your answer is going to be 13.5 for this one. So x equals 13.5. All right, looking at number 4. What are they giving me for number 4? They're giving me my opposite side and my adjacent side, so I'm still using tan. So looking at it, I'm going to have a tan 70, so just underlining in blue so you can see, equals opposite over adjacent. And for this one, I can go ahead and just multiply both sides by 3. Plugging it into the calculator, x is going to equal 8.2, and that's your answer. All right, and looking at the last one, what are they giving me? My opposite side and my adjacent side according to my angle, and again, I'm still using tan. So tan 40 equals 15 over x. I can't multiply both sides. Well, I can multiply both sides by x and then divide. So just kind of skipping ahead and showing you the work. You're going to have 15 over tan 40. If you solved that one correctly, x is going to equal 17.9. So keep in mind that this is the opposite side. This is the adjacent side. And this is your hypotenuse because it's opposite of your 90 degrees. And you will get a question like this on your test. Definitely good practice. All right, 9.2. Looking at 9.2, I did tell you guys to cross out number 9, so don't worry about that. And then you still have to know their special right triangles, 30, 60, 90, and 45, 45, 90. These should have been quick and easy questions. So looking at this, definitely you guys have these on your quiz, so study them, please. Writing the rules, I have A, radical 2, A, and A on this side. This is my 45, 45, 90 triangle. So I'm writing it on both so I remember the rule. And solving for this one, looking at this, because I'm trying to solve for A for this one. And in order for me to do that, if you're wondering, okay, why is it just 4? Some of you knew right off the bat it's 4. You're dividing both sides by 2. These are going to cancel out. These are going to cancel out. So when you're looking at it, they're all canceling out. And what do you have left over? Left over, A is going to equal 4. So because all of these are going to be 4, that means x is going to equal 4. I'm looking at the next one, pretty easy. If A equals 5, you're just plugging it in. X is going to equal 5 radical 2, and you're done. So looking at my 30, 60, 90, I'm going to go ahead and label. Opposite of 30 is A. Opposite of 60 is A radical 3, and your hypotenuse is 2A. So what they're telling me, if A equals 1, just plug in a 1 for your A. Keep in mind this is multiplication. So your answer for x is going to be radical 3. Your answer for y is just 2, because 2 times 1 is 2. Looking at the next one, number 6. Labeling opposite of 30 is A. Opposite of 60 is A radical 3. And opposite of your 90 degrees is 2A. So if 10 equals 2A, so I'm going to write it over here. Solving for A means you need to divide both sides by 2. It's going to cancel out. And then A equals 5. All you have to do is plug it in. And your answer for x is 5 radical 3. And your answer for y is just 5. All right, you are going to get a geometric mean question. You got it on the quiz. You're definitely going to get it on your test. Looking at this one, solving it, I have everything's going to go in a radical symbol. You're going to square root it. Always check first. 3 times 12 is 36. So the square root of 36 is a perfect root. This is a perfect root, and your answer is just going to be 6. If I were to do the same thing for number 8, and let's say I just checked it. Let's see if this is a perfect root. I'm going to get the square root of 240. It is not a perfect root, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to factor these out. Keep in mind, I am still leaving my radical symbol on my numbers. A lot of you guys like to get rid of it. Please keep it there until you find a perfect root. So looking at this, what I mean by that is this one is a perfect root. The square root of 4 is 2. I'm leaving it outside my radical. I could still simplify this to radical 3 and radical 2. And now I'm going to see what I have because I can't simplify it anymore. So what I have left over, I have radical 5, radical 2, radical 3, Radical 2 and a whole number is 2. So if I'm looking at this, I normally like to tell you guys look at the pairs. I have 1 here and 1 here. I'm going to solve it right here. Radical 2 times radical 2 is going to give me radical 4, which is a perfect 2 as a whole. Okay, so I just changed these to this 2 right here. So I'm going to write down what I have. I have radical 5 times radical 3 times 2 times 2. I'm going to write that a little better. 2 times 2 is going to be 4. Radical 15 is my answer. So there will be a question for you to simplify a radical. Please make sure you know how to simplify a radical for your test. This is 9-2. And the last page, looking at the last page, please don't get confused on these questions. You will not have to tell whether the side lengths form a Pythagorean theorem. I just need to define x. So for these, you are using the Pythagorean theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, if you forgot what c is. C being your hypotenuse. Oops, I forgot some letters. Hypotenuse. All right, so let's go ahead and solve it. Looking at number 1, first try and identify your hypotenuse. So for this one, looking at it, this in blue is my hypotenuse right here. They're not giving me my hypotenuse. How do I know it's my hypotenuse? It's opposite of 90. So right now what I have is 3 squared plus 4 squared equals x squared. I can easily just plug this into the calculator. 3 squared plus 4 squared in my calculator is going to give me a 25 equals x squared. And all you have to do is get rid of that squared by square rooting it. Don't forget that, please. And this is a perfect root. So x is going to equal 5 as a whole. Looking at number 2, here is my hypotenuse. Identify your hypotenuse. How do I know it's my hypotenuse? It's opposite of 90. And I'm going to have 7 squared plus 7 squared equals x squared. And looking at this one, 7 squared plus 7 squared, again, you could just plug that into the calculator. You're going to get 98 equals x squared, and then square root it. Okay, so looking at this, try and simplify if you can. I can simplify this to radical 2 and radical 49. This is a perfect root, which is 7. I can't simplify anything else, so my answer, x equals 7 radical 2. And number 3, again, identify your hypotenuse. This is my hypotenuse. How do I know it's my hypotenuse? It's opposite of my 90 degrees. So for this one, I'm going to have 20 squared plus x squared equals 29 squared. And solving, 20 squared is going to give me 400. Keeping that x squared equals 841. Going ahead and subtracting by 400 on both sides. These are going to cancel out. X squared equals 441. And then get rid of that squared by square rooting. And for this one, x equals 21 because it is a perfect root. All right, and the last 2 questions, verify the segment lengths form a triangle, which they do. Okay, again, how you're verifying that is add your 2 smallest and subtract them and see if that number falls in between. Is the triangle acute, right, or obtuse? So plugging it in, again, what I'm using is my Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared, and c being my hypotenuse, which is my longest side. So solving for this one, I'm going to have 5 squared plus 12 squared. I don't know if it's greater than or less than. And then I have my c squared, which is 13 squared. So still kind of the Pythagorean theorem, but I'm trying to determine if this is an equal sign, a greater than or less than symbol. So plugging it into my calculator, this is going to be 169 and 169. Are they equal? Yes, they are. It is a right triangle. Looking at the next one, doing the same thing, I have my 2 smallest. 5 squared plus 7 squared. I don't know what it's going to be greater than or less than or equal to. Solving it, I'm going to get 74 and 64. Again, it determines my C, my hypotenuse. So because my hypotenuse is smaller, this is going to be acute. So rule for this so you know it and you have it. When your C is smaller, it's going to be acute. Oops, acute. When your C is larger, it's obtuse. And when your C is equal, it's a right triangle. Just so you know, because you will get a question like that in your test. Please study it, review it, and you guys have your test on Monday.